Oh my god. Oh my god. Alright, and another genius move. I just streamed all of the answers to your question, Weston, and I never actually clicked the button. I'm going to... Oh my goodness. Good morning, Antius. Alright, let's go back and do this again. We're gonna restart the stream. But I'm a professional, everybody. Okay, let's do this. Alright, everybody. Good morning. Let's try this again. I know in Twitch you already got this intro, but we're gonna do it again because the way that YouTube is set up, I do not believe that I actually clicked the go live button because for the first time ever, I tried to use a schedule stream. Hopefully, everybody on YouTube can hear me now. Good morning, my name is Kevin. We do this twice a week, Sunday nights, Wednesday mornings. This is a Q&A, AMA, etc. about game dev, blueprints, Unreal Engine, visual scripting, and also if you're working through our Python programming crash course for creatives, feel free to hop in and ask questions here. That is very cool. My name's Kevin. I have no idea what I'm doing apparently. I totally forgot to click the button to go live again. Not again, but just because it was scheduled this time. I just finished a really an explanation for Weston's questions about what the difference is between a sequence, a blueprint, a montage, and a anim blueprint. I believe I'm going to need to do that again, which is perfect because it looks like Weston's just hopped on as well. So real quick, I don't think there's anything to watch, Weston. I don't think it was recording because I think I forgot to press go live. Even though it's set up and everything and the chat was working, Twitch got it, but I don't believe YouTube did. So I'm gonna go back through the explanation again fairly quickly. I work in R&D at Riot Games. I'm currently a tech artist there. Lots of cool things that I get to do at work, but we do this because there's a lot of cool things I don't get to do at work because Unreal Engine is crazy deep, and this gives me a chance to learn a lot of cool stuff as I stumble through things. So here we go. Let's re-stumble through this explanation. All right. So here we go, real quick. Back to the explanation of the difference between an animation sequence, a montage, and an animation blueprint. Okay, so an animation sequence is kind of the base building block. Just as a general heads up, it is an Unreal Engine asset that plays a series of animation, usually on a bunch of joints. Hold on. So it plays a bunch of animation on a bunch of joints usually. They're imported, they're usually these green guys. And if you open one up, you'll see a bunch of joints moving, usually. So I mean, they're animated. Now there's different settings and everything in here, but that's basically it. It plays an animation. Now, if you look at this, just for fun, this is an attack combo, and this is going to be the next half of your question. So let me break down what this folder has in it. We have attack combo 1, 2, and 3, and these are each of the different swings of an attack. You can see this one's an upward swing, and then this one's a final swing. Now, one of the things I want you to notice is this animation is moving through space. What do I mean by moving through space? You can see the character is attached to something back here at the origin. That is its root control. So the character is walking away from its root here. Why am I pointing that out? I'm going to point that out because it comes important later. Here's, so we have our 3 combos. Then you'll notice we have the 3 combos again, but they're in place. So if we look at that exact same animation again, you'll notice that it's the exact same animation. The difference is the character's staying at the origin. It's not moving away from that thing that was back behind it, that was like holding on to it. This is done in place. I'm gonna explain to you why we do this later, but just know. Then if we go back to this folder, you'll notice that we have our attack combo, all of them strung together. Here's each of them, 1, 2, 3. And you'll notice that they're moving away from the origin. You can see this tether back to the origin. That's actually a joint that it's moving away from. And then the last one is those 3 all strung together. And this is in place. So all 3 together. Now, whoa, why do we have all this? We have, in one folder, for this particular asset, we have attack combo broken up. We have attack combo broken up in place so that it's not moving. We have the attack combo all strung together, and we have attack combo all strung together in place. Why do we do that? We do that because of there are many different ways to potentially author your animations, the blueprints that you're trying to put together, all that kind of stuff. And so depending on what you need all the right pieces to string them together. So bottom line, at its core, an animation sequence is basically a series of keyframes, which is a fancy way of saying putting movement on joints. It's just an asset that holds all that information. Okay, that's your animation sequence. A montage is usually a bunch of these together. What do I mean by that? It could be a bunch of these or one. So, for example, I created, when I was streaming to nowhere earlier, I created a new montage, and what I did is I dropped in all 3 of these animations. So this is all 3 of the animations in one place that I can play if you will. And you can also move them around in here, so you can kind of change the order if you want to. So this is almost like, it's not quite a full editor, but it basically allows you to string together a bunch of animations. Now, there are there's a lot of other cool things you can do with montages. For example, you can also, as part of a montage, like it's a montage of animation, but you can also do things like you can play effects in here. You can trigger different kinds of effects. You can, tell it that you only want the animations to play in a certain slot. What I mean by that, like you may only have upper body stuff or lower body stuff. You can also put in notifies, so you can talk back to blueprint systems and things like that. So it really is a montage of a bunch of things. So you've got a montage where you're throwing together a bunch of animations, maybe VFX, maybe sound, lots of different things. So that's a montage. It's kind of a collection of it. And then you have your animation blueprint. Now, I created an animation blueprint in here just to chat about. And if we compile this blueprint when we first create it, the biggest thing here to note is the animation blueprint has 2 parts. We have mostly 2 parts. We have the event graph, and this works like the event graph in most other blueprints. We use this to trigger events, respond to events, and usually you're doing things like setting up variables, like is the character moving, what is their speed, are they in a particular state, and you call things like is the blueprint, event blueprint update animation. But you're not actually controlling what's playing on the character here. That's done in the anim graph. This is where you decide what you're going to play on the character. You'll notice that when you first start, it has one output pose, but there's nothing plugged into it. So if you compile this, the character doesn't actually move. If I simply, Westons, are we coming through now? How's your day rolling so far, Antius? So if we were to come in here and we were going to play, let's do a katana animation. Let's do our combo 3 in place. What I can do is I can connect this up, and then when I compile this, you'll see that it actually, okay, cool. When I compile this, now it's actually playing. So this particular animation blueprint is only playing a single animation. If we were to plug this blueprint into our character, and you do that, for example, on the pawn, in this case, we have shooter mannequin. This is our skeletal mesh for the character. Over here, here's our animation blueprint. If we were to plug this in to our animation blueprint instead of the one that's there, our character would do this sword attack for everything. He would move around the screen, sliding as they went, but attacking the whole time. So the animation blueprint is where you set up all of the logic to decide, excuse me, what animations play when the character's idling, jumping, moving, attacking, etc. Oh, I know. VO is awesome. One person can do, so Antius, those of you on YouTube, Antius was saying they've been working with VO artists, and it's amazing. Like, VO artists can do so many different voices in one person. It's amazing how talented they are. Okay, so we have, this is where we decide like the different things that get blended together to become our final pose that gets played per frame on our character. So that's kind of an explanation of an animation sequence, a montage, and a blueprint. Now, a montage, you cannot actually play a montage in here. Generally speaking, and the way I'm used to working is montages are usually triggered by the ability system or some event in the game. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, for example, the game we're working on, the character runs around, etc., and then the player presses a button to attack. At that point, you can say play montage. And then as long as your character's set up to handle the montage, then the montage will play either in place of, on top of, or blended into the character's animation, and then when it's done, it'll go back to running around or doing whatever. You can also do things like trigger it based on events. So for example, you could create a montage for a door opening. When you walk up to a trigger volume, you trigger the event by doing, overlap character, you trigger that event, and then by standing on that door switch or whatever, you could in Blueprint play montage. And the montage that you play is the door opening, for example. So that's kind of how you use montage, and you can kind of throw in all your visual effects and all kinds of stuff in there if you want to. So hopefully that is an okay explanation of the difference. Now, if we take a look at, I'm going to close these out. If we take a look at our current character, speaking of locomotion, if we take a look at our current character and we look at our animation blueprint for this character, I haven't looked at this in a while, so this is going to take some stumbling. Okay, so this is, and this is really cool because they did a pretty good job of documenting what's happening here in the Lyra project. Basically, you can see, just like we had before, this is our output pose, and we can kind of work backwards from there. If we look at this, there's something to do with control rig, there's something to do with full body skeletal controls. This is procedural fix-up, like IK stuff. So I can explain to you what that does in a second. Turn in place, so that's motion, inertialization, whether or not we're full body, additive hit results, these things are all getting added in, and then this is our cached pose from our upper lower body split. Basically, you would want to do some work with just, core animation blueprint stuff to understand how all this works, but what this means is we've gotten to the end of the line here. Like, there's nothing else that happens. Everything in here, I can explain to you what's happening if we black box it. So let's do that. We have a pose that's coming from somewhere. I'll explain where in a second, okay? Then what we're doing with that pose is we're feeding this into, interesting, I don't know what that does. We're feeding this into a full body aiming. So what's gonna happen is whatever pose we're in, we're probably going to do some aiming, like for our guns. It has our aim, yaw, and pitch in here as our variables. And then there is an additive hit react. So if we were to get hit, it would play this additively. So any pose you're in, so when you author animations, in addition to authoring them so that they are authored in place or moved through space. You can also do things called additive animations. This system is super deep. Okay, what I mean by additive is, let's just say that your primary motion right now was walking and you got shot in the shoulder, okay? And so you have this little bump back, but you don't want it to actually change your character's legs because they're still walking. You can do an additive animation, which is basically just slight offsets in the rotations of the shoulder, for example. And what's going to happen is, if you play that additively, it takes the animation that's already there and adds on top of that little hit flinch, that little hit react. And so your character will keep walking, doing all the animations they're doing, but it's going to do that little hit react no matter what pose it's in. So if the character's hunched over and you play the hit react, it's going to pop this way. If the character's arched backward and you play a additive hit react, it's going to pop like this. Okay, so that's what that one does. It applies an additive, full body additives. I'm not sure what these are. We'd have to look at what they are. And then, I can't even read this. It does another thing, and the inertialization is all about like stabilizing the stuff. And then this is a turn in place. So if you're standing in place, how the character turns to face different targets. Then these are full body skeletal controls. These are cool. So this is like, let's say your character, let's say you animate, most of the time you animate your character walking on flat ground. And then you get in game and the terrain is not even. But the animation's still gonna play on flat ground. So it's gonna look like your character's feet aren't making contact with uneven surfaces. So how do you fix that? Well, usually what you'll do is you will do something like, I'm gonna paraphrase here in game. Where's my character in the scene? Where's their foot? And then if this is the ground plane, and this is the foot, what you can do is you can cast a ray downward and see if you hit the floor. And if you do, you can say, oh, I need to move the foot downward to make contact with the floor. Good morning, STEM Labs. To make contact with the floor so that it looks like the character is making proper foot contact with the floor. And you can do the same thing the other way. Like if the character's feet is through the floor as a result of it, it would go up. Thanks, STEM Labs, I appreciate that. So this section here that says procedural fix-up, that is doing a lot of different things like what I just described, where what you're doing is you are procedurally trying to fix things like foot placements, or interestingly enough, here's some control rig stuff. So control rig is in-engine rigging basically, and you can use this to do things like have your accessories react to your character's animation. Because remember, your character animation is going to be a blended result of a whole bunch of stuff. And you don't want to animate all of your accessories to do all that. So you can create a control rig that will respond to the final pose of your animation. That's why all this procedural fix-up stuff is being done just before it gets plugged into the output pose. Okay, holy smokes, long-winded. Basically, what we just did is we just traced back from our output pose what's happening. We have a procedural fix-up, we have a bunch of other stuff, and then we have this upper body, lower body split cache. This is the one thing we didn't talk about. We black boxed it. This is a way for you in your animation blueprints to be able to section off things. So if we just look for something called upper body, lower cache, we can find it right here. This is, wait, that's the upper body, lower body split. Locomotion, okay, cool. So this one basically takes the results of a bunch of animation blueprint steps and caches them into a pose. And then you can use that pose as the start of your next series of logic. So you'll see these cached things here. So here's another one. Use the locomotion cache. So we're just backtracing from here. This is our locomotion cache. And then if you backtrace from here, this is our locomotion state machine. This is what I was trying to do, trying to get back to. the state machine, because I want to show you this just so you see what it is, because you asked me the question, how does locomotion work? Keep in mind, just like in all things in Unreal, there's multiple ways to do this. But if we look in this, I didn't mean to move that. If we look in this locomotion state machine, you're gonna be like, whoa. But don't panic. If you just read it, you'll probably be able to get an idea of what's happening here so you can understand it. When we enter this state machine, there's idle, we've got start, there's a cycle, there's a stop, there's a pivot and pivot sources and all kinds of little doohickeys between this stuff. You can read over here and do the same thing and kind of figure out what's happening. We have jump start, jump selectors, there's a loop add to it, there's what happens at the apex. When we hit the apex, there's a fall loop, then there's a landing, and then we're gonna end the in-air stuff, and then, all this other stuff. So probably the easiest one to explain what all these doomaflachis are between each of these states, because these are the states, is this is what determines whether or not you can go from one state to the next state. So if I'm at the jump apex, if I double click this, you can see this is the can enter transition. Oh no, where'd it go? Okay. And if we look at this can enter transition, you'll notice that there's a bunch of options here for how we do this. And basically there's a duration here that allows you. So if you have been in this spot for more than 0.13 seconds, it will allow you to enter the transition and start the fall loop. So if you're idle, before you can start or stop, first off, you'll notice there is no way to get from idle to stop. There's no arrow that goes to stop. You see that? So you can't go to that state. So if you're in idle, how do you get to start? In order to get to start, there is all of this stuff that has to happen. Now, what are these things? One of them is the character has acceleration. I can start if I have acceleration. I can start if I'm melee and I have velocity. So I need to have acceleration of some kind, or I need to be melee and have velocity. Then I can start. This is just controlling whether or not I can move to the next state in the state machine. So before we get too far down the rabbit hole, the overall point is all of these things go together to make up how the character is going to move. That's what the animation blueprint does. At the core of this, if we were to go into the idle state machine, you'll notice that if we go in here, all it does is it plays an idle animation. And this is controlled actually by, this is usually controlled by some variable somewhere, because they don't like to do that. If we go into start, so here's an example. We're gonna do lean, here's our leans, and then we have a full body start state. And in here, we'd have to go to the full body start blueprint. Let me see if I can find it. Full body idle state. Let's see if we go to our stuff, if we can find it real quick. Let's see if we can find, let's see what's available for full body. Start. Nope, I don't see it. We would have to do some digging to find where that is. But hopefully, that is a good explanation of the difference between an animation sequence, an animation montage, and the animation blueprint. It's interesting that this doesn't have an actual animation plugged into it, but we're gonna let that go. Okay, so with that, I believe, does anybody else have any other questions before I pop back into some of the cool stuff I found out about? Basically, we're here to answer questions. Those come first. If there aren't any questions, I'm gonna hop back into the prototype I'm working on and explain to you all the cool stuff I figured out. So before I do that, does anybody have any questions they want to throw out? Also, if I start and somebody pops in and has a question, I'll just, we prioritize questions first. All right, have a great day, Westons. Thanks for hopping in. All right, Antes has a question. Have you had a change to retarget UE4 many? Whoa. Have you had a change to retarget UE4 Manny rigged animations to UE5 Manny? Okay, that question is. I think I'm missing a word or two in there. Have I had to make a change to retarget UE4 to UE5? Is that maybe what we're talking about? Or did I change my skeleton when I switched from UE4 to UE5? There's a couple different... Could you clarify that question for me, Antis? I think the answer is yes. I've had to make a bunch of changes from going to UE4 to UE5, but it wasn't because of the Manny. It was because for me, when I previewed the retarget animation, it looks correct, but then after exporting, I have a few misplaced bones, such as the elbow sticks out a bit and the hands don't make a perfect closed fist. Okay, but are you exporting on... Okay. So, yes, there were changes. It depends if you are using the mannequin, the original mannequin, or if you're using Manny. Is it called Manny? I forget what the dude... Because the skeleton changed, especially if you're using Lyra as the base. So the Lyra skeleton is it's pretty darn different than... Yeah, STEM, my name's Kevin Freeman. It's just Kevin. But most people at work call me just Freeman because there's too many Kevins. So nobody, if anybody says Kevin, they'll know what it is. But you can also call me Freestyle. I'm cool. That would be a really cool nickname. I'd be fine with that. But no, my name's Kevin. Yeah, from the original mannequin to mannequin. Okay, are you using the IK retargeter for that? Okay. I have not looked close enough to see if there's grip details, but yes, I am also using the IK retargeter to get animations to play on the new skeleton. I'm trying to think if I had to do anything special for that. I haven't looked at that fine level of detail yet. Hey Foxtrot, welcome to the stream. So I haven't actually been looking at fingers and stuff as to whether or not that retargeting is spot on or not. It is entirely possible it's off and I just didn't notice it because it's good enough for the troubleshooting and the work I've been doing. I'm happy to kind of take a look next time I'm in there to see if I do see anything like that, and I will definitely let you know. I do know, I'm trying to think, there was something weird that I noticed that I realized. Oh, I can take a look at it, because there's something that happened. I realized I could not do something with animations that I retargeted as a result of the fact that they didn't have their inputs anymore, that I bumped into a month or so ago. I'm blanking on what it is. If I remember what it is, I'll hit you up. I'll just send you a PM or something. Foxtrot, hi Grace. I'm new to BPs and want to get my scene capture component viewport camera to have my Cine camera focal length. Holy smokes. Okay. I have not used a scene capture camera in forever. So let's see if we can find, where are you doing this? Are you doing this in your character BP or are you doing this in your level, or where do you have your cine camera set up? Wow, there is so much stuff in here. It should be under your lens settings, I think. Okay, cine camera VP. Let's see if we can make one and do that real quick. I'm going to do this. Let's go to this folder. So I can do this in here. Cinematics. Camera animation sequence. That's not what we're using. Cine camera. Cine camera actor. That's the one you're using, or cine camera component? Let's just try cine camera actor. Cine camera. Okay. I don't even know if I've ever even looked at one of these. Oh, okay. I know what we're looking at. Never mind. I have looked at one of these before. So in here, if we are in our event graph and we grab our camera component, can we get the focal length on this? Focal length? Nope. Okay. Well, our cine camera actor actually has a cine camera component on it, so we should be all right. Interestingly enough, all of your settings are over here on the right, like your film back, your lens settings, etc. So can we lens? There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of events for us to use on this. This is transformations. Asset manager and registry, audio, camera. You can set the aspect ratio, field of depth, ortho width, project. Yeah, you can set a bunch of stuff. What was it you were trying to set? Okay, you're trying to get your focal length. So get underneath the get stuff. I think this may be one of those things that you have to calculate. Hold on. Camera. Utilities, camera, get camera mesh hidden in frame. Camera options. Okay, so you can get your aspect ratio, your field of view, your near and your far clip plane, your ortho width, and your projection mode. I believe you have to get your field of view. Okay, this is where I need some film guru to help me out. Field of view and get aspect ratio. I think there's something you have to do by getting your aspect ratio and your field of view. I'm creating a bookmark tool using utility widget and the scene capture. It's taking a snapshot of the viewport. I have an image widget displaying the viewport. Okay, but the focal length is wrong. Okay, well, from your camera component, you can get the field of view and the aspect ratio. And I believe, if vaguely somewhere in the back of my mind, calculate focal length from field of view. Is that how you do it? Sensor size, lens focal length, and field of view. So somewhere, somehow, there's math to calculate focal length. Get the current focal length. That's from the movie render pipeline. That's not what we want. Let's see here, focal length. If we don't use context sensitive. Cine camera, get current focal length. That's on a cine camera component. You can totally get that. So this camera component must not be a cine camera component. So if we were to, ooh, wait, hold on a second. Hold on, let's turn off context sensitive. Get focal. Oh, dude, you can get it right there. You're saying it's right in there. No, that's not it. Hold on, let's add a cine camera component to this. If we add a cine camera component, maybe this camera component isn't actually a cine camera. If I drag off of this cine camera, can I get the focal length from that? I can. Okay, so that's all you have to do. That should do it. All right, and then STEM Labs. Can I add the target mesh by assigning the target IK rig in the target IK rig asset? Because I'm not able to view it. Okay, so. I wonder, STEM Labs, if your question is you're trying to do IK retargeting and you're not seeing the asset. Could you clarify your question a little bit? Like, could you give me some context as to where you're working? That would be helpful. Okay, good question so far, y'all. We are not going to stop at 9 today. We're going to run a little bit later because I, in a masterful move, forgot to click the go live button when I was answering Weston's questions earlier and streamed to nowhere but except Twitch for like 20 minutes straight. So it was awesome. Okay, so you're trying to do this with IK retargeting. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, retarget. So here is our retargeting options, for example. And the retarget, for example, I have, by default with the Lyra setup, there's 2 directions that this goes. If we open these. Open. Okay. And in this particular one, this is retarget the UE5 to the UE4. And the other one is to retarget UE4 to UE5. Now, when we do this, interestingly enough, these aren't spot on. So, Antius, there's going to be a little bit of offsets just by default, simply because I didn't realize these characters were, I mean, the UE4 mannequins at least a little bit bigger than the Manny. And so there's probably going to be some offsets here in general. So for example, if you were trying to grip a weapon perfectly, you might see a variation here just because of the difference in the shoulder placement, the length of the arm, and the wrist. And you might have to use like an IK solution to perfectly fix that depending. All right, STEM Lab, so we've got 2 of these open. We got from UE5 to UE4 and UE4 back to UE5. Which one, like when you open this, you don't see those, or are you trying to do your own? Because basically in here you have your source and your target, and you basically go through and define these. And the only reason I could think of, if you were to, if we create one of these from scratch, I'm gonna go back to this folder because I want to be able to clean all this stuff up. Let's see if we can create a retargeter from scratch. IK rig, IK retargeter. I don't see the characters. Okay, so let's do this. IK retargeter. Pick the IK rig to copy animation from. Okay, do you have your IK rigs defined? You have defined the IK rigs? Okay. So assuming that but you don't, when you go to pick when you go to create an IK retargeter, do you see the list of the rigs that you created? Okay, cool. So then if we pick like UE4 mannequin, that's what we're going from. If I double click this now, okay, so this is the UE4 mannequin, and then that's our source. And then when I click on target, or no, that's our target, and then our source. Hold on a second. Man, these button things are confusing. Source, target. Oh, you don't see the mesh here in the viewport. That's what you mean? Do you see the joints and not the skin? If that's the case, there's a couple things you got to make sure that your character mesh is turned on here in your viewport settings. If you don't see the bones, you would, underneath bones, you would make sure that your bones, you have all hierarchy displayed. And then under your details in the right, you would need to make sure that you have the actual source preview mesh set for both the source and the target. So for example, you can see here the target, there's nothing set, so I don't even see the target. So I would have to pick my target in this case, which would be, let's take the IK mannequin, and now you'll see my target shows up. It could be related to MetaHuman. I think I would just compare the IK retargeter for MetaHuman to the one that they have in Lyra. It's all checked, huh? So basically you're looking at this screen and you see no character mesh. And you see no bones. Do you see a list of joints off to the left when you click on source and target? If you see a list of joints, I'm definitely confused, and I would definitely be looking at my show and character stuff, which it sounds like you did. I would check my details as well. Okay, so if that's the case, then maybe it's a clipping plane thing with your characters, so your character's super huge, whatever. I think something that I would do just for my own sanity is I would open a retargeter that somebody else built. What I mean by that is I would take a look at like the Lyra one just to see if it's working when you're looking at the Lyra project. Or if you're started from the Lyra project, look at the ones that are kind of already in there. Okay, you can see everything in the source, but just not the target. And when you click on, because I didn't see anything in target either. If I reset this, all I have is source and there's nothing in target. I have to update my details to make sure target is set. So just out of curiosity, if you can see your source, I'm curious if you set your target to be your source, do you have things that show up? Well, the reason I'm asking this is if you can see your source, that seems like a valid source then. If you set that to your target as well, then if you see that, then it's not your IK retargeter that's the problem. Because I would expect if you can see the source and you set the source as the target, even though this wouldn't do anything, what that would do is it would help you dissect and troubleshoot the problem. And so if you can see it with your target set to the same as your source, then that tells you there's something wrong with the new target that you've set up. So give that a shot. Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. So Antius over on Twitch is asking if you have anything set on your target mesh offsets. Because if you have anything on your source or target mesh offsets, like for example, let's go back to the UE5 mannequin just so you can see the difference. If I have an offset here, not that way, let's go left so it's easier to see. If I have an offset here of negative 100, you can see it's offset. But if I put in like a negative 10,000, when I open this, it doesn't look like the characters here. So you can also double check and reset your target mesh offsets and make sure that those are all zeroed out. Cool. Oh gosh. So you know that feature in Unreal Engine where you can right click to drag the windows? Okay, so nothing on your offsets. Got it. Okay. I often, because you can use right click to scroll a window in Unreal, I often try to right click to scroll a window in Windows now, and it messes everything up. Okay, so let's kill all this stuff. Any other questions, y'all? Okay, while we wait to see how STEM Labs is doing with their retargeter, let's talk about some of the cool discoveries I made super late at night because the dog wouldn't let me sleep. So thanks to the dog, we made progress. And what do I mean by that? We were struggling when we left. We could not figure out why our abilities weren't canceling properly. So in multiple different ways. If I specified that another ability canceled it, it worked, but the same ability could not re-trigger itself and wouldn't restart, and couldn't figure out why. Well, it turns out I spent a bunch of time in the code learning a whole lot about how abilities re-triggering, etc. works. And one of the cool things about using version control is I can show you like the few line changes that I made after many hours of digging, where I think I might have, I don't know if I found a bug in the Lyra implementation, but I definitely found something that doesn't make sense. And I'm probably gonna have to post to the dev forums to figure out if I'm doing this the right way. But let me show you what it was. So on the left is the way the current 5.1 version of Lyra was implemented the last time I got the latest build. And we're in this section of code, and this is going to be a quick explanation, but basically when you process the ability input, even if you don't know C++, I can talk about this out loud and this will make sense. When you process the ability input, you do a bunch of stuff. And then for every single ability, you go through and you check whether or not it's valid. And if it's actually a valid ability spec, then what it would do is it would set the input to being pressed. It said, hey, we got this input. And then if the ability was already active, it would just basically pass on the input. And it would just call this function that says, hey, they pressed the button. I'll get to that in a second. Otherwise, what it would do is it would basically check to see what the activation policy was on it and whether or not it was triggered, and then it would activate the ability. Now, here's the problem. From what I could tell, this ability spec where it just passes on the input says, hey, input was pressed. This like went nowhere. It doesn't do anything. And so if you dig deeper into the code, effectively what was happening is it would go to try to activate the ability again, but it would not work because there's a caveat that if it is its own self, like if I'm like, let's say I am the ability emote. If I try to call myself again, it ignores it. It just says, nope, you can't re-trigger yourself effectively, which is weird because if we go back here in Unreal on Emote, if we look at the class defaults, you'll notice that right here, there is an actual option, a checkbox for re-trigger instance ability. And the idea here is that if it's true and you try to activate the same ability again, it says what it does. It will end it and re-trigger it. That's what this checkbox is supposed to do. But these 5 lines of code or whatever, this section right here basically negated that. And so whether or not you checked this box here, or you canceled yourself, or you used the relationship tags, all the things we were working with last week, not even last week, Sunday, it wouldn't work because it sent it off to the middle of nowhere. Oh, dude, Antius, kudos to Antius. The offsets were off. It's only when I clicked to change the offsets, it was a different number. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Antius, as well. Bravo. Antius says sweet. Good job, y'all. Okay, so basically, from what I could tell in the code, and I'm making this up as I go because I have not worn a software engineering hat in like 20 years, but I decided I was going to try something, and what I did is I changed this, simplified it to basically just, if the input is pressed, it just triggers the ability, because it should handle that properly. So I'm showing you this on the stream so that anybody else who's potentially fighting this can see in the Lyra ability system component.cpp on this line. All I did was change this loop to simplify it. There's no longer an if there, it just basically activates the ability. And if the ability, then what happened is the minute I did that, now let's go back to our game. And if we press play now, it apparently hits a breakpoint. Debug, disable all breakpoints, delete all breakpoints. Yes, I do. Somehow. Looks like we're gonna crash here. I don't know why. Let's see if it comes back. Bummer, dude. All right. Let's restart. I have no idea why. Maybe I got the editor in a big state. Anyways, so as a result of making that code change, now what happens is if you are emoting and you press emote again, it'll restart the emote. So you can now spam the emote, which ultimately isn't what you want for the player. But the cool thing is now it actually works the way it's supposed to. So what I can do is if I re-trigger the emote, it will restart. And I cannot re-trigger the remote by setting cooldowns or anything I want. And also, in addition to the retrigger stuff that's part of the class defaults now working properly, all of the tag relationship stuff works properly as well. So I can now actually cancel abilities properly, which is cool. Hopefully, thankfully, with this setup, the rebuild time is, when we switch to 5.1 is fixed, so we've almost relaunched here. Not gonna lie, as much as I didn't want to get a new machine, I'm pretty excited after 8 years to finally get a new computer that will hopefully be able to keep up with Unreal and video and everything. Apologize for the video quality again today, but it's the only way for me to keep the stream moving at a speed that doesn't crush everything. All right, so let's try this again. So if we press play. All right, so here we are in our level. If I press emote, you can see I'm emoting. If I press emote, it restarts. And that is simply just because I'm now using the checkbox. So if I open up my GA emote, my gameplay ability for emote, not emate, emote. If we open this one up, I can show you the difference. Over here in our class defaults, this retrigger instance ability, if I uncheck that now and we play again, when we emote, I'm hitting the button. It doesn't matter. It does not stop. STEM Labs on Twitch. How you doing? You're switching channels. Oh, look at this. What do I do with this? First time chat. So STEM Labs, meet Antius. Antius, this is STEM Labs, y'all. This is why we do this. This is cool over time. What I've noticed is when we start getting set up and people start coming, the wealth of knowledge that is available, people helping each other out, just like what just happened. It's a lot of fun. So, Frost Floss was STEM Labs on YouTube. Antius they're making a game, Shadows of Glory, right? You can look it up. It's already in. You can see the pre-launch post in Steam, or you can check out the site. And I'm not sure what Frost Floss is working on, but something with retargeting for sure. Okay, so back to what we were doing. This GA emote stuff. If you look at it, this retrigger instance ability, you'll notice that the ability did not retrigger. You heard me pressing the button. To show you furthermore, if we do the relationships, if we look at the tag relationships on the hero for the emote, this is the emote, and right now we can do ability tags to cancel. So there's two different ways to potentially cancel this. Let's try this one now. If we cancel emote, now what's going to happen, here, let me save this. So if we emote, that one does not work. So the retrigger does not work. So the only way, but it does work. Like it can't, I guess it doesn't cancel itself. So let's clear that. Let's try one more place. Let's try this one. Let's see if we can do it this way. Emote. Ability type action emote. Can we cancel there? Or is it only just retrigger? Nope. So basically you need the retrigger. But this didn't even work before at all if I didn't have this. So now I can spam my ability and restart it over and over again. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so that's that. Now, why did we do all this? We did all this because we were trying to work on our sword combos. Something that I'm concerned a little bit about, though, is our check for movement. We may have messed that up. Okay. But The whole reason we were doing that is because what we want to get to is this. I don't even know. I need to see what state I'm in because I was working on it this morning. If I do a combo, all right, I want to be able to move out of the combo. See how if I move, I can quit out of it if I attack. So if I attack, I can move. So now if I attack, here's my full combo. This already feels better because what I didn't like being locked in the combo. Now, what I'm trying to get to is the ability to first attack, dash, second attack, dash, etc. But in order to do that, let's see here if I can do this. Nope, I can't. And the reason I can't do that is because I added, where did I add that? Let's look at our sword combo. I believe it's this one. Okay. This checks for movement. This ignores movement. All right, let's bring this back so we're not ignoring movement. And let's just double check that that's true. Oh man, what did I change? I changed something. So it used to be that if I was running and I triggered, it would... Where are we? This is the sword combo. Oh, here we go. This is why. Movement can restart. Okay, I was trying to figure out all this logic. Let's move this up here for right now. And let me explain to you from scratch what I was trying to solve. Okay. This is where the default state is. All this stuff is junk right now. Okay. If we go play, I believe this gets us back to where we were. If I see how I can sword and see how I'm moving while I'm sorting, this actually is a really good example. Oh, actually Weston left. If I'm basically able to move while I'm playing these combos, which is kind of weird, okay? But it is a step in the direction that we want to go to. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it so if you're running along and you hit the attack, you stop moving, you start your attack. And then if you want to continue moving, I think, because what I want is I want to be able to break up the combos so that you attack dash, attack dash, attack dash, but not a true dash, just a move, so that it just feels good. And I think if we hit just that simple thing, melee will be in a good enough place where it's good enough for a first level prototype. So what I'm trying to figure out right now is how are we going to get it so that as we run forward, we swipe, we basically stop and go from there. So how do we do that? If we come back here, and when we trigger this, I simply ignore movement. Now what's going to happen is the next stage of what's working. So if I'm running and I hit the combo, you'll notice I stop. And then when I finish, I keep going. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to make it so that basically they'll tell you what I'm doing on the keyboard. I'm running, I hit attack, and I'm pressing left. Nothing happens. I want it so that if I'm in the middle of this, I can dash to the left or right or break out of it. Being stuck in this when I am like at any point, like this is a very long attack to be stuck in. If I'm stuck in this and I see somebody come to hit me and I can't move out of it, that lock feels really bad. So I want to be able to get out of that. So how do I do that? All right, well, what we can do is we can take and we can do a simple bind event to on movement updated. And the event that we're binding is the check for movement. Check for movement checks to see if there's any movement, and if it does, it stops the montage. So now if we do this, if we're in our attack, you'll notice I can move out of it. So here I am swiping and I can stop out of it. Now here's the problem though. If I'm running and I go to attack, I'm not attacking. I am, but you just can't tell I am, because here's what happens. I'm running, I'm holding down the movement key. So the character's moving. I hit the attack button. The minute I hit the attack button, it says, oh, but you're moving, so it gets out of it. So I never actually do the attack. So what we need is kind of a state here. What we need to do is, and you can see what if we go through it. This is basically the ability comes in, we start playing the attack montage, then we check to see if there's movement. If there's movement, we stop playing the montage. What we actually need to do is we need to play the montage, right? The animation of us attacking. We need to be ready for movement, but then we want to temporarily, for some time period, set move input to be ignored. And then ideally, we would check for movement if, and this is the part I gotta figure out, time doesn't work, because you could say after half a second, if the character is still moving, then they're actually trying to get out of it. Or you could say, problem is the animations that you're going to be playing as part of your montages will be varied in length, so that's kind of like maybe not what you want. So we could do it based on keyboard input. So the thing that I'm thinking I'm going to try is I'm going to try so that if you are holding down the move key like WASD, in order to reset the state, basically the minute you start attacking, if all you do is let go for a second and hit again, I will read that as being an intentional you want to get out of this ability. If that happens, then we would also be able to create a window where when you see the sword flash, if you press the button, you actually get a bonus dash, as an example. That would be really cool. Now, we are not going to be able to get into that today. We're actually at a point where we kind of got to wrap stuff up. So let's do that. But that actually gets you all up to speed to where I was. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Today was fun, actually. We got, other than the initial blunder of forgetting to click the button because I actually used the schedule this time. Hopefully I'm going to use scheduling in YouTube in general now to help people know what's going on. Twitch already has it, but we had a bunch of really cool questions today. Hopefully that was helpful. I at least got you all up to speed as to where I am with the gameplay ability system and movement. What I'm going to be doing between now and Sunday, hopefully if I have time, is I'm going to be trying to implement that state where if the person who is playing is holding down run, they trigger the attack, that sets a state up. Attack has been triggered and still running. Movement will be disabled unless they release the key and press again. Then that will trigger like the new dash state or whatever it is we're trying to do. So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to try. I think there's many different ways to potentially achieve this. Ultimately, I don't care which one we use. I just want to get to a point where, and we're already better, right? Where melee feels good enough so that we can get back to the overall arc of what we're trying to get to, which is a playable prototype, so that we can all play this game together and iterate on it together, which would be fun. As always, thanks for hopping in. Anti, STEM Labs, Weston, it was awesome to see you all. Foxtrot, thanks for hopping in. I hope to see you all again soon. If you have questions, as always, feel free to throw those down in the comments, or feel free to hop in the next live stream. The next live stream is going to be Sunday night at 10:15 Pacific Standard Time. So we do these Sunday nights and Wednesday mornings to kind of hit 2 different time zone setups. Any feedback's welcome. If there's different format, let me know. As always, anything you can do to support the channel is really cool, so we can keep doing this stuff. And I will catch you all later. Have a great rest of your week, all.